Hi! In this video, we're going to cover 20 essential English phrasal verbs. And trust me, folks, these are game changers. By the end of this video, you'll learn how to use these phrasal verbs like a pro. But why should you care? Well, let me tell you. First of all, mastering phrasal verbs will take your English skills to the next level. You'll sound more natural, more fluent, and more like a native speaker. You see, English speakers use phrasal verbs all the time in everyday conversations. If you don't know them, it's like missing a key to unlock the language. I've handpicked 20 phrasal verbs that are not only super useful, but also versatile. We'll break them down, provide clear examples, and show you how to use them confidently in different contexts. If you're ready, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up for free English lessons. Now, let's dive into these 20 essential English phrasal verbs together. But first, what are phrasal verbs anyway? Phrasal verbs are basically verbs plus particles, which could be adverbs or prepositions, that when you combine them together, they form their own phrase, which may mean something different compared to its literal meaning. Sometimes these also can be used as idioms. So let's have 20 examples for today. The first phrasal verb is break down. So what does this mean? So this phrasal verb has several meanings, and one of them is to stop functioning or to fail. Another meaning is to take a complicated problem and explain it step by step, like solving a puzzle one piece at a time. The next meaning is, sometimes when people are very upset or they're tired, they might start crying or feeling really weak. We say they break down like a car that stops running. Another meaning is, in science, when something breaks down, it means it turns into smaller parts, like how ice melts into water when it gets warm. And yet, there's another meaning as well. If you have money, and then you lose some or it becomes worth less, we say your finances break down like losing coins from your piggy bank. The last meaning of the phrase break down is, it can also mean ripping or smashing something into smaller pieces, like tearing up a piece of paper into tiny bits. The first example is, my car broke down on the way to work this morning. So if you can see, we use broke down instead of breakdown because broke is the past tense of the word break. The next example is, the computer system broke down due to a software glitch. The next example is, after a long hike, Sally felt so tired that she broke down and started crying. Now, the next example is, let's break down the math problem into smaller steps so it's easier to solve. The next example is, when you heat ice, it will break down and turn into water. Another example, after buying too many toys, Tim's piggy bank broke down and he had less money left. The next example, she needed to break down the big cardboard box into smaller pieces in order to fit it in the recycling bin. Our next English phrasal verb is call off. To call off means to cancel or abort or leave something. So here's an example. They had to call off the soccer match because of the heavy rain. So you use the phrase call off instead of the word cancel in this case. The next example is, the wedding was called off at the last minute due to a family emergency. Now on to the next phrasal verb, which is carry out. To carry out means to complete or perform a task or action. So use this instead of the word do or doing. Here's an example. The chef will carry out your special order. The next example is, we need to carry out a survey to gather customer feedback. The next English phrasal verb is come across. To come across means to find or encounter something unexpectedly. So you usually use this when you meet or you see something that you didn't think was there but ended up turning up or ended up being there. So here's an example. I came across an old friend while shopping at the mall. Here's another example. She came across an interesting article online. Now the next English phrasal verb is cut down. To cut down means to reduce the amount of something. But if you were to take the literal meaning of the phrase cut down, it actually means to chop off something, like when you are cutting down a tree. But in this case, as a phrasal verb, here's an example. I'm trying to cut down on my sugar intake. Here's another example. They decided to cut down on expenses to save money. Now the next English phrasal verb is do away with. To do away with means to eliminate or get rid of something. So here's an example. The company decided to do away with the old dress code policy. Here's another example. Let's do away with unnecessary paperwork to streamline the process. So in this case, as you can see, it means that you are going to try something new. You're getting rid of the old way of doing things. Now the next English phrasal verb is drop off. To drop off means to deliver or leave someone or something at a particular place. So let's say that you are a regular customer of Amazon. So every time you order something, their delivery guy will drop off the package at your place. Here's an example. I'll drop off the package at your doorstep. Here's another example. Can you drop me off at the airport on your way to work? Now the next English phrasal verb is fall apart. To fall apart means to disintegrate or break into pieces. Here's an example. The old book fell apart when I tried to read it. Here's another example. Their relationship fell apart after years of arguing. So it's something that was once whole, but after a while, it becomes into something smaller or it disappears completely. Here's another English phrasal verb, get by. To get by means to manage or survive with what is available. So here's an example. It's tough, but we can get by with our current budget. So let's say that before you had a bigger budget, but now you have a smaller budget, but you can still manage. Your smaller budget can still answer for your necessities. Here's another example. I can get by on just a few hours of sleep. Now the next English phrasal verb is give in. To give in means to yield or surrender in an argument or situation. Here's an example. After a long debate, she finally gave in to their demands. So let's say that you are arguing with your partner or with your spouse or even with a coworker. You use the word give in when they're arguing with you and then you just don't want to argue anymore. You just take whatever they have to say and you don't really care who's going to win. Here's another example. Don't give in to peer pressure. Make your own choices. Now the next English phrasal verb is hold on. To hold on means to wait or to pause for a moment. And you usually hear this phrasal verb being used when, let's say, you are calling a customer representative over the phone and they will tell you to hold on before they answer your inquiry. Here's an example. Please hold on while I find the information you need. Here's another example. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. Now the next English phrasal verb is keep up with. This means to stay at the same level or maintain the same pace as something. So let's say that you are running a marathon and you want to be first, but you can't keep up with the person who is ahead of you. You can't run fast enough to be at the same level as they are. Here's an example. It's hard to keep up with the latest technology trends. Here's another example. Can you keep up with the fast pace of this job? Now the next English phrasal verb is look after. To look after means to take care of or watch over someone or something. Here's an example. She looks after her younger brother when their parents are at work. Here's another example. The nurse will look after you during your stay in the hospital. Now the next English phrasal verb is make up. Now usually you hear the word makeup when you're talking about women's cosmetics like lipstick, powder, foundation, all of that stuff. But in this case, to make up means to invent or fabricate a story or excuse. It's something that isn't the truth, but you are thinking it or saying it anyway. Here's an example. He made up an excuse for being late to the meeting. Here's another example. Children often make up imaginative stories. Now the next English phrasal verb is pick up. To pick up means to lift or gather something from the ground. Here's an example. Can you pick up those books that fell off the shelf? And here's another example. I'll pick up some groceries on my way home. The next English phrasal verb is put off. To put off means to postpone or delay something. It means that you are keeping something to do for later and not now. Here's an example. They decided to put off the meeting until next week. Here's another example. Don't put off studying for the exam until the last minute. Now the next English phrasal verb is run out of. To run out of means to deplete or lessen the supply of something, so there's none left. Here's an example. We've run out of milk. I need to buy more. Here's another example. They ran out of patience after waiting for hours. So you say run out of or ran out of when you're talking in the past tense. It has already happened. Now the next English phrasal verb is set up. When you say set up, you mean to arrange or establish something. So here's an example. They set up a new business in the city center. So it didn't exist before, but it exists now because you set it up. Here's another example. I'll help you set up your computer. Now the next English phrasal verb is take off. Take off means to remove or start to become successful quickly. So here's the first example. Please take off your shoes before entering the house. The next example is the company's new product is expected to take off in the market and earn $1 million. So it's expected to become successful very quickly. Now the next English phrasal verb and the last is turn up. To turn up means to arrive or appear unexpectedly. To turn up means to arrive or appear unexpectedly. So the first example is he didn't RSVP but he turned up at the party. To RSVP means to reserve your seat. But in this case, he didn't reserve his seat, he just appeared, he just turned up. The next example is the missing keys turned up in the living room. They suddenly appeared. So there you have it. These are all the phrasal verbs that you can use in your daily English conversations in order to sound like a native English speaker. Because as you can see, English has a lot of phrases and a lot of idioms that you can use that may not necessarily mean exactly what they state, but mean something else. So knowing these words will help you sound more natural. It will help you sound like you really know the language. And if you like this video and if you learned something new, please do give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to this channel for free English lessons. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.